Everyone you play with is banned. That means you're going to be banned eventually too. It's called guilty by association. Hello, Thicey Bread. Thanks. You like my moose? He's got a little pop gun, and our dog is named Moose, so it works out. It's like a it's like got dual meaning. Welcome to the Rocky Cast, the Rock Cast. Alright. You have 21,000 pop gun points. Can I get... I subtly talk about no diving basically on a weekly basis. It's like an Easter egg at this point. You have to be suggested by a team in there already. What, Nova got banned for being cracked? Possibly. I don't even know what you guys are talking about anymore. Oh, the midpoint. Hey, when is the midpoint tournament? It's like not this upcoming Sunday. It's the next one, isn't it? The one after. The 14th. Valentine's Day. My opinion on it? Hold on, let me scroll back up. What do you think of the midpoint plus thing? It's basically Ludi's for teams with majority of players not in plus two. I'm all for it. I don't I don't see any reason to not be for it. Is anybody publicly against it or something? I'm all for more tournaments that are run by organizations that are legit and know what they're doing. Chose that tournament because there's no other. Yeah, doing stuff on Saturday is very. I think there's a SAC on the 13th, and a good chunk of midpoint teams are in SAC, so that would knock that out. Fills the grind zone gap. Yeah. But we've had a lot of tournaments pop up recently that try to fill the grind zone gap, and some of them do a good job, and others fail miserably. But life goes on. I don't see a reason why the midpoint one should fail miserably. Destiny troops will play in it. I think if we're available. Sometimes doing a tournament on a Saturday and a Sunday is kind of taxing for us. We'd like to pace ourselves. But if we got enough bodies for it, yeah, we'll do it. Get ready for a lot of "See boys" today. I'm happy those guys played long enough to where I got to talk about them on, or I got to commentate for them. See boys. It even allows your team, if only one or two players or less in your team are in plus two. If you're well, okay, well that for stuff like that. If you're a plus two player, why would you want to play in something like that? That's like these people asking for an exemption request to play in low ink, which I gripe about a lot, and the vast majority of them get denied anyways. And we haven't seen many people complain about being banned from low ink now. I think they realize it's kind of cringe to complain about being banned. And I think SAC has banned pretty much everybody that's asked for an exemption request except for like a handful of people this season. And a couple of them were like, "Why are we banned?" And it's like, because you're too good, sweetheart. I don't know what to tell you. Team by team basis. If only one player in your team is plus two, you can still play. Okay, well, I'm gonna go out. If I want to win this thing, instead of using the purpose of it is to grind against other teams around my skill level. If I want to try to win, I'm gonna go say, "Hey, anybody from plus two want to play for our team for this tournament?" What's up, Toph? Favorite part during grand finals was when you guys were like, "Say it with me, guys." Did you say it? Did you say it with me, Splatfer? You like the pink shirt? Well, thank you. I wore it for me, not for you. You're in plus two. You are not, Hoenn. K-Bot is, though. We'll get K-Bot in on that tournament. I think the Destiny Troop tag would look pretty nice at the end of K-Bot's name. See, boys. Ranked best of 9 script hubs. The new tag is nice. Well, thank you. The old one was just a slash and a D and a T at the end of it, so it's not really new. It's been around for we rebranded our tag I think about 3 or 4 months ago. It's just it's basically, well, I can't. Here I can just draw it. I'm not good at drawings. The tag looks like that, basically. It's like a little military badge patch kind of thing. That's with the twoops. I care about team tags more than most people. Yes, there you go. Salem, you're not. You ain't on Destiny troops, pal. You don't get that stuff. You don't get that. You ain't even a Destiny cadet, bro. No, Baki takes it off. Baki only puts the tag on for tournaments. Whenever we do scrims, Baki always takes his tag off and changes his name. Baki doesn't want to associate with us until he's forced to. Imagine not wanting to work with Popgun. I forgot to put the starting students thing, so if you're watching this on YouTube, we're starting now. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or a VOD, Twitch or YouTube, while you're watching Wolf of Wall Street clips to learn about stocks, arguing over which evening chicken dipping sauce is better, crossing off someone thinks day one is elimination from your low ink help desk bingo card, whatever it is that you're doing right now, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. Thank you for Salem for memorizing my opening there. This was this is a fully written, fully noted podcast episode. But I will admit, I wrote a lot of this last night until I passed out, and I woke up this morning and I decided, I'm just gonna chill this morning. I'm not gonna focus too much. So this, I don't really know what I have written down here. And this might be, sometimes when I watch back an episode of the podcast, there's several times where I go, and I'm like that's the stall that I naturally do while I'm trying to think of something to say. Be prepared for a lot of noises in this episode of the podcast, because more of this is going to be off the top of my head than just reading off a sheet of paper, which I think comes out to be one of the more better episodes of the podcast. So don't think there's going to be a lack of quality here. This is going to be the best episode of the podcast you've ever seen. And if it's not, go back on YouTube and watch all the old ones and find one that's better. Eventually you'll find something I make that you will enjoy. Unless you don't. News. News coming up. The Minnow Cup is going to be this Saturday, February the 6th. That is going to be the Splat Zones this time around. The favorite mode of everyone. Knowing that Rainmaker is going to be the one around the corner. So a lot of teams already signed up for Minnow Cup. I don't have that information on hand, but I know it's probably going to get just about as many, if not more, teams that signed up for that tournament in the past. So if you're looking for more low ink action with just Splat Zones only, sign up for the Minnow Cup. The Little Squid League is having an invitational on the 7th. That is Sunday. So if you're looking to play in that tournament, I think that's not really something you can control. That was more so something only 8 teams can participate in. And those 8 teams are the Alpha Squids, Booyah X, Ink Eye, the Wiggly Phantoms, TNGP, Inkcraft Cult, Thick Thigh Lovers, and the team that the name is spelled Iride, but it's not pronounced Iride. It's pronounced something completely different from what these letters that say Iride are pronounced. So I don't know what to call that team. They're the team, I'm just going to call them the team that is spelled with the word Iride. And somebody can correct me in chat for how you're actually supposed to pronounce that. Those are the 8 teams playing in the Little Squid League Invitational on Sunday. I'm excited for this. I'm going to be sure to watch it. And we're going to be talking about the Minnow Cup and Little Squid League on the next episode of the Popcast. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. Hey, it's the first day of February, which means the next Low Ink is going to be announced. I know when that is going to be, but it has not been officially announced on the IPL page just yet, so I'm not going to reveal that date. But keep an eye out for that, because the date will be released soon. TM. Trademark. So if you're looking to find out when the next Low Ink is, to stay tuned, because more Low Ink action is right around the corner. Today, I'm going to be recapping Low Ink. in case you had no idea what we were going to be talking about today. We're going to be discussing everything from Saturday to Sunday, Swiss, Gamma, Beta, Alpha, not Delta, because that wasn't a thing, and everything in between. But first, let's address the elephant in the room. The one thing a lot of people are talking about. Let's just knock that sucker out right away. It's like, get the camera just right how I want it. That's good enough. Rising Matrix set a new record for consecutive wins in Low Ink history at 32, smashing the previous record held by Persistence at 26. In fact, they went a combined 32-1 in this tournament. The most dominant performance we have ever seen in Low Ink history. That includes all of the tournaments that happened before the 2-day system. Now, we've seen some teams back before the 2-day system that absolutely destroyed this tournament, arguably in much more dominant fashion than Rising Matrix had. But since we switched to the 2-day thing, we have never seen a team completely destroy Low Ink in the way that Rising Matrix did. That is a fact. It's not an opinion. The question raised by several people: should Rising Matrix have been allowed to play in Low Ink, knowing what we know now? The short answer to that is yes. The long answer to that is what I'm about to give you right now. First off, I'm not going to dissect each player's individual history, Battlefy history, tournament results, things like that. That's not my place to be spilling that kind of information. Not that it's like secret information. Literally anybody could look it up if you have the right resources. But the point of this podcast is not to defend each player's individual eligibility. But each player's individual eligibility was legit for this low ink. This Rising Matrix team was made up of players that have played in low ink in the past, recently in the past, with several other teams that people are familiar with. Then they have not won low ink. They've made alpha bracket before, but they've also made a lot of beta brackets. This is a team made up of players that are not new to this tournament and have not done damage in the past. Now, all those players have left their previous teams and have formed this new team, and they obviously have made the right combination of 4 players to kick some serious booty here. It happens. Now, when a new team kind of pops off like this, there are several lists of concerns, especially from the TO sides of things. First off, if it's a team full of players that nobody knows and we've never heard of, and the only thing we had to verify these guys was like what we found on their Twitter page or their Discord or something like that, that's scary. Because that could be anybody that's just destroying the tournament. And that's happened in the past. Nobody has won recently with that, but there have been teams that made alpha and did decently well in alpha, and we're like, who the heck are these guys? Are they? But that's not the case with Rising Matrix. Again, every player had history that we could find. Another concern when a team pops off is, are they potentially Smurfs? Why is this level 20 guy who doesn't even have a B rank to his name making alpha bracket? Why is this dude who can't even buy a K Pro yet because they're not high enough level defeating Persistence? Something kind of weird is happening here. That's not the case with Rising Matrix. All of their players were verifiable. So, this is a team we knew going into this. That's totally fine. Second off, we have seen Rising Matrix several times already in low ink. This was Persistence in October, Valhalla in November, Last Chance 2 straight months in a row. We've seen this team before. We have seen teams go completely undefeated on Saturday and then turn around and just make Sunday a joke. Absolute joke. Just completely embarrass the other alpha bracket teams. Nobody complained about those 4 instances. You know why? Because when it came to grand finals, all those teams, and I hate pointing this out because it's not fair to constantly bring this up, but in defense of Rising Matrix, those teams always choked at the finish line and failed to bring home the W 4 straight times. But it's the same level of dominance that we saw out of Rising Matrix. The reason we're mad at Rising Matrix is because they did something those teams couldn't do, and that is finish the tournament. They slipped up a little bit on humpback zones against the Sea Boys, but we're punishing these guys because they did something we've already seen before, just at a better level. They actually finished out the tournament. But we've seen these kinds of monsters in the past that seem unbeatable. They're just the first one to actually be beatable, actually be unbeatable. But where were the critics then? Persistence was 26-0 at one point. Nobody was in suggestion chat. You guys need to fix your verification system. Persistence shouldn't be in here. Last Chance went to grand finals 2 months in a row without like much of a second thought in between them. Nobody was in suggestion channel. Why do you keep letting Last Chance in if they're just going to spank everybody on their way to grand finals? Splatter Swim was the only team ever to go completely undefeated in a low ink as far as per matches is concerned. 11-0 in matches. Nobody was in suggestion saying that we have no idea what we're doing by letting Splatter Swim play in this tournament. And why is that? That's because all of those teams, you guys know, You guys know Persistence, you knew Splatter Swim. Valhalla was a new team, but they were all mostly players from the revitalized team that you guys all know and love. But still, Rising Matrix is the same situation. Rising Matrix is Valhalla. It's a new team of former low wing players, and they just didn't lose. That's not their fault. So people shouldn't be blaming them for winning. And if you're Rising Matrix, you shouldn't be apologizing for winning. It's not your now. They weren't as dominant as they appeared. They forced their will on Squid Row and made Squid Row uncomfortable. But watching that set, I got the sense of like, Squid Row is not playing the way we're typically used to seeing them play. They seem a little frazzled. Deco X27 should have beat them in game 2 and tied up that set in dominant fashion 1-1. They didn't. They choked putting them away, and they just let them come back and steamroll them on the very next push. That's not Rising Matrix's fault. That's Deco X27. And after that loss, when they went to splat zones at Humpback, Deco X27, you could see they were mentally frazzled by that. They started feeding. They lost all their coordination. They were going in 2 at a time and basically just getting stuck in this meat grinder. And Rising Matrix just took that. So to sit here and say that they were unbeatable, that's not the case. And Sea Boys had their opportunities. Now, obviously not just back on the one game that they beat them, but in other games as well. Obviously, game 1 was just a complete curb stomp, but Sea Boys had some potential to knock them out. And by the way, if there's one team that you guys should be complaining about being in this tournament, it should be the Sea Boys. They played in SAC, the first 2 SAC tournaments. They made top cut twice. This is a top 8 team in SAC, and you guys are constantly saying there should be a difference between SAC and low ink. But if you really stood by that mindset, then you should be on Twitter going bananas about the fact that Sea Boys got let in, even though they are a top 8 SAC team. But no, that's not the case. Instead, we're celebrating the Sea Boys. They're the rightful winners of this tournament. But the reason we are hating on Rising Matrix, here's why. I'll explain why. They don't play in SAC. They haven't played in SAC yet. They haven't played in Aquatic Cup. In fact, this is the first tournament on record that I've found that Rising Matrix has played in. And that is what we need to see more of these guys going forward in the future. We need to see more of Rising Matrix. This can't be just a team that formed just to win low ink and then they disband. If they do that, if they just fall off the face of the earth, or they just go their separate ways, or they play in other tournaments and don't have the same level of dominance that they showed here, then yes, the Sea Boys will be seen as the team of this tournament. When people look back at this low ink, they will think of Sea Boys and they'll be like, what was that team that won, that went 32-1? Rising Matrix or Stealth Matrix or something, one of those Matrix teams that just played for a little bit and then disbanded. This can't be fluency. These guys need to justify this tournament win by doing well in other tournaments. They need to build a legacy off of this. This just can't be a one-off thing. And I get it. I get why people are upset. We don't want to see anybody dominate low ink. I don't want to see it either. It's you in a skill cap tournament, you shouldn't want to see that. I get that. And it's really not fair to me. I usually have this mindset of win your games or shut up, in a sense. And it's really hard to say in a skill cap tournament where a team just goes 32-1, just beat them forehead, because obviously teams tried to beat them and struggled really hard. But again, that's not Rising Matrix's fault, and they will not apologize for winning because they don't have to. The other teams had their shots to beat them. They just didn't. And that's not something that Rising Matrix should be blamed for. I'm going to get off my soapbox here in defending a team. But at the end of the day, is C-Boys the rightful champion here? No. Is C-Boys the more popular team? Is C-Boys going to get more clout from this? Yes, that is 100% a fact. They already have. People were the highlight of the tournament was when Rising Matrix lost that game. That was when chat popped off. And that sucks for Rising Matrix because that's not totally fair that they become the villain of the tournament. But if I'm the villain of a tournament, I'm just gonna own it. I'm just gonna beat every single team that comes across my path and well, not laugh at them on the way down because that's unsportsmanlike, but I'm not gonna apologize for it. So, congratulations to Rising Matrix. Congratulations to C-Boys for their performances there. But to all the people that are just hating on Rising Matrix, come on, man. Come on. Don't take any credit away from them, is basically what I'm getting at here. The tournament itself. Switching gears. 137 teams. I think that was the number that officially played. It was much higher than that, but as we always expect, teams drop right before the tournament actually starts. Teams don't check in. Some teams were never in the server to begin with. So it's like the assumption of like, okay, these guys aren't even going to check in or play. But I think 137 was the official start total for this low ink as far as teams are concerned. That's a lot. Now, why is 137 changes a lot of things and makes things more interesting for the TO side of thing. Why do we do 2 groups in the past? Why do we do 4 groups now? Battlefy has this thing, if you do Swiss. If you reach a certain number of teams, if you reach 65 teams, it forces you to do 7 rounds of Swiss. It forces you to do that. We don't want to do 7 rounds of Swiss. As TOs, you guys as participants don't want to do 7 rounds of Swiss either. You might think you want to, but I promise you, you don't. So, what if we just do 2 groups of Swiss? Neither group is above 65 teams, so you're only going to get 6 rounds, and then we just take the top 8. That works out great, but what happens when you have 129 teams sign up for your tournament? Uh-oh. We're going to have 2 groups that go 7 rounds? No. You can't do 3 groups, because 3 groups can't evenly divide into a top 16 bracket. So you have to do 4 groups, which is what Low Ink did. And this was kind of a last minute decision on our part when we're like, oh crap, we got too many teams here to do what we want to do. So things had to be kind of put together at the last minute. The seating for Top Cut was something we were literally like mathing out. Like, how does this work properly for like each seed out of each group to where it's fair? And the seating for the groups themselves had to be looked at even harder. And when the seedings were first looked, I looked over them myself and I was like, we might want to switch this and that because this group has too many stacked teams in it. And you want to just like double check and make sure all your T's are crossed and all your buttons are pressed or whatever. Because you guys like to complain about every little detail that seems off to you about these tournaments. So you want to make sure that everything is at least defendable and that everything that people are going to complain about is at least justifiable. I know you're upset about this, but we foresaw that, and here's the steps that we took to try to prevent that from being an issue in this tournament, etc., etc. So that's why there's 4 groups, to avoid 7 rounds of Swiss. Delta bracket was discussed. In theory, you want to have about half your teams qualify for Sunday. And with this amount of teams, it would make sense for a Delta bracket to exist. But again, since this was all kind of last minute, and I'm not like leaking any behind the scenes information. This was literally posted in the announcements that we were debating having a Delta bracket. There was no Delta bracket this month, mainly because a good chunk of teams dropped during the tournament and brought the like total down to like 127 or something like that. But that doesn't mean that Delta is completely off the books for the future. Don't quote me. Don't be like Popgun said there's going to be a Delta next bracket. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's potential that it could happen. It just kind of depends on certain factors. With this amount of teams, I've always said, if you want to make top cut, win 5 games in Swiss. That's the only way to guarantee it. You win 4 games, you better hope the teams you played against kick some butt as well along the way to make your opponent win percentage a little bit better. But if you win 5 games, you're in. But with this amount of teams, I wondered if that was still the case, that you could still win 5 games and automatically get into Alpha. It wasn't the case. Red Sun became the first team ever in Low Inc history to fail to qualify for Alpha Bracket / Top Cut with a 5-1 record. To be fair, though, one of their wins was because they had a bye in round 1. And that's something you can't really control. It's not like we forced Red Sun to have a bye in round 1. They were just given it. So, and I don't know how that officially affects your opponent win percentage. I think it just doesn't count. I think you only get divided by the other 5 teams you actually played. I don't think it gives you like a like you played 6 teams, and since bye didn't beat anybody, we're just like multiplying 0% in for their score. I don't think that's how that worked. I think you only get judged for the 5 teams you play. But it's hard, as much of a captain hard butt as I am at times with teams that complain about not making top cut. And I didn't see Red Sun complaining at all about their position or anything like that. It's hard for me. Red Sun going 5-1 and not making Alpha just doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't. But how do you fix that? How do you make sure that your teams that go 5-1 make it? And teams that are in other groups, as somebody's pointing out in chat, some teams in other groups did make it by going 4-2. But you can't just be like, well, we're going to put Red Sun in this. We're going to put this 5th place team in this group in over the 4th place team in this group, because they had completely different tournaments. They played completely different teams from each other. That's not a fair It's not a fair. If you're going to start comparing one team from one group over the other, then you're opening up a giant can of worms to compare every team against every other team in this entire tournament for every single bracket. So that's something you don't want to deal with, I promise you. But the solution, how do you fix a 5-1 team and make sure they have an opportunity to earn a spot in the top cut? The only solution to that is to give them another round of games to play, round 7. And once again, nobody wants 7 rounds of Swiss. The vast majority of you don't even want 6 rounds of Swiss, myself included. When I play an SAC and we play 5 rounds and we're 4-1 or whatever, it's like, what do I have to gain by doing another round? It's just another opportunity for us to shoot ourselves in the foot, you know? But 7 rounds? Maybe. Yeah, Red Sun, would they like to play 7 rounds in this tournament? Oh, sure. Would Tooniverse want to play 7 rounds? Would Amnesia want to play 7 rounds? No. With the teams at the bottom of the bracket that got disqualified from Sunday after like round 4, do you think they want to play 7 rounds? No. There's only like a handful of teams that would actually want to do that. So what's the solution to 5-1 team making it into alpha? There isn't one. There isn't one. And that's what frustrates me, because I feel like there should be some way to where you go 5-1, you make it. Because in my mind, you've earned it. Now, again, one of their wins was from a bye, but regardless, they earned a spot in Top Cut, and they just didn't get it. So I don't know what the solution to that is. That's just something I want to point out. I am typically very much on the favor of win your games. Only losers complain about tiebreakers. But I did want to point out, because this was the first instance I've seen in any tournament that I've covered where I've thought, these guys have an actual gripe if they chose to gripe about it. So I wanted to point it out as I drop my pen. Before we get into the actual matches of this tournament, we're going to look quickly at my top 10, which was, nobody DM'd me to laugh about it, so that must mean I've done something right. Of my top 10, and I'm not going to break down I'm not going to break down per team who did what exactly like that, to some extent. 4 made alpha, 3 made beta, 1 failed to qualify for Sunday, 1 dropped, and 1 disbanded. So that's awkward. But this is about par for the course for me. Did I get the winner right? Nope. I didn't even mention him yet again. But life goes on for there. Sorry, Rising Matrix. You guys played well, obviously. You don't need any more pats on the back. I did put C-Boys at number 2, though. And they did go number 2. So we got something right there. In fact, well, no, actually, I'll talk about that later coming down the road. But as far as my top 10 is concerned, not that this needs to be like a how good am I at predicting things kind of thing, but that's about par for the course. It's really difficult to get a top 10 because some teams drop, some teams just completely underperform. And I feel like, to an extent, the top 10 puts a little bit of unfair pressure on some teams, that if there wasn't like a Pop Gun top 10, that maybe these teams would have performed a little bit better. But at the end of the day, the top 10 really is just a recap of what everybody's done last Lowing and throughout the month of the year. So it's more so just like a highlight of the top 10 teams currently, in my point of view, before the tournament even starts. What happens during the tournament is completely up in the air. As we see, a lot of these things aren't really predictable. It's not even predictable about who's actually going to play in these tournaments. Even when you do it on a Thursday, when teams are actually signed up, you don't know if they're actually going to follow through and play in these tournaments. But, and I forgot where I was going with that tangent, but the fact of the matter is that I'm still going to do the top 10. It's a reflection. It's more so to give credit for what you've accomplished recently. Just pointed it out. And I'm not the only one who notices these kinds of things. So I feel like these teams have the targets on their back anyways. It's just a matter of, can you deal with having that target on your back or not, is the question. Let's talk about Saturday. I choked 2 sets. Oh, Twisted Time? It's all right. There's always next month. Unless they're not. Unless that was the last low ink ever. I guess it's possible. Swiss. Let's look at some matches of note here in the Swiss stage. First off, C Boys 2-1 over Toxic Haze. How about that? The Destiny Cadets, the Toxic Hazers, the team that won Gamma Bracket last November, taking a game away from the team that finished in second place overall in the entire tournament out of 137 teams. Not too shabby. I've been singing the praises of Toxic Haze for a while now. I'm saying they're knocking on the door, taking a game off of C-Boys. They're still knocking here. But not really getting the job done. They did, the C-Boys had an awkward Saturday. They had a lot of interesting 2-1 results. The Deep Fried Octolings took a game off of them. The Deep Sea Cephalopods took a game off of them. But Toxic Haze, the Destiny Cadets, whenever they do something interesting, even if it's in a loss, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to keep an eye on it. Speaking of the Deep Fried Octolings, here's a good result for them. 2-1 over the Geek Squids. Now, I've said, when I gave, the Geek Squids were in my top 10, and they made Alpha Bracket. But I kind of said, they need to stop getting these 2-1 results against teams they have no business getting 2-1 results against. And this is why. Teams like the Deep Fried Octolings are on the rise. Teams like Twisted Time and Resilience are on the rise. And if they mess around with these teams, they're going to surpass them. And this is a good win for the Deep Fried Octolings. And it's starting to show that this is still a good loss for the Geek Squids, because the Deep Fried Octolings are for real, but technically, as far as I'm concerned right now, this is still an upset. Evening Chickens 2-1 over the Inky Go-Go's. Now this is this was kind of this was a round 6 matchup, and this is kind of the pitfalls when you have a group where only the top 4 move on. Normally, this kind of matchup would have just been just for the seeding for Alpha Bracket. Like, both these teams would have made Alpha Bracket regardless of the result. But since only the top 4 move on, Evening Chickens get the 2-1 win here. They move on to Alpha Bracket, and they knock down Inky Go-Go's to Beta Bracket. So we got a lot more interesting and tight matches in round 6 when only the top 4 move on to Alpha, and this is one of them. Tooniverse 2-1 over Resilience. What in the world happened here? This is by far the biggest win in Tooniverse's history, and a total shocker, an absolute shocker of a result. The winner got to move on to Alpha Bracket. Both teams came into this one with a 4-1 record. And having played against both Resilience and Tooniverse in the last SAC tournament, my thought was that Tooniverse could win this one, but that's going to be a tough win. And then when I was done watching the game that was on stream, I went back and checked the score, and I was like, whoa, Tooniverse won this one. Tooniverse going 5-1, making Alpha Bracket. That is that's a tough loss for Resilience. They'll bounce back from that, but Tooniverse making some noise in this tournament. Another team making some noise here, Amnesia. Their most interesting win, at least in my opinion, is the 2-1 win over the Krusty Crew. This is a really nice win for Amnesia, and was one of the key reasons why they also went 5-1, qualifying for their first Top Cut. Interestingly enough, if I could mention the Krusty Crew, one of the teams they always get stuck playing against is Thimbo IHOP. It is a close rivalry between those two teams, and they always it's always a 2-1 result when they play in Swiss. Interestingly enough, those two teams got put into the same group this time around, and they somehow avoided each other. So I don't know how they feel about that, but that's just something I want to point out. I like to keep an eye on certain matchups. Krusty Crew and Thimbo IHOP is a matchup I like to look for. I'm not saying that them ended up in the same group is pure coincidence, I promise. But as I was just looking through it last night, I was like, oh, they're in the same group. Did they play each other? I'd mention that if they did. The Kraken Warriors 2-1 over Surf and Turf. Now, neither of these teams qualified for Sunday. That doesn't matter because this is a good matchup on paper. These two teams seem to be pretty evenly skilled with each other. Surf and Turf kind of revamped their roster recently, and I believe the Kraken Warriors are doing the same thing as well, or at least they still are recruiting. So it's going to be interesting to see where these two teams are next month. But they played each other here on paper. It's an even matchup, and the score would tell you that it was as well 2-1 for the Kraken Warriors. Now we're getting into the matchups that were on stream, because we had some good 2-1 results that were on stream on Saturday. First off, checkmate 2-1 over the Wiggly Phantoms. This was a fantastic set. The Wiggly Phantoms won game 1. Checkmate was able to reverse sweep and get the win 2-1 at the end there. The Wiggly Phantoms had the better tournament. They ended up going 4-2 overall. I don't think Checkmate qualified for a bracket to begin with, but still a good win for Checkmate, knocking down a 4-2 team, even though it didn't stop the Wiggly Phantoms from having the better tournament. Royal Court 2-1 over, and I'm going to mispronounce this, Fukatsu Angels. This was another reverse sweep. The Angels won game 1. Royal Court held on, took lead late in tower control Schellendorf game 2, and did just enough to prevent the lead from being stolen from them at the very end to win this entire set 2-1. Very nice set there by those two teams. Enigma 2-1 over the Shrimp Chips. Shrimp Chips is a hard thing for me to say. That is a tongue twister, I feel like, so I got to slow down and say Shrimp Chips whenever I talk about them. Another reverse sweep that was on stream, and a quality win for Enigma. That Game 2 Splat Zones at Mako Mart was absolutely fantastic. Enigma was able to get the win at the very last second in a very, very good back-and-forth Splat Zones game on Mako Mart. It seems like the best games we see across the entire community is always Splat Zones at Mako Mart. The best game of all time I've ever seen was Europe versus North America in that Nintendo Open Grand World Championships, Splat Zones Mako Mart. That's somewhere on YouTube. Go watch that if you want to see the best 5 minutes of Splatoon action ever performed anywhere. And a very similar kind of game here between Enigma and Shrimp Chips. Ship Chips. Game 3 was a complete KO from Enigma, but nice set to be on stream. Other matches that weren't on stream that I still found interesting. No Diving 2-1 over the Thick Thigh Lovers. First off, let me just talk about the name Thick Thigh Lovers. That makes no sense. That's like people who need oxygen to live. Like, who doesn't like thick thighs? We all are thick thigh lovers. Come on now. TTL is one of the teams that is playing in the Little Squid League Invitational going on this weekend. So, No Diving getting a 2-1 win against them is very nice to see, and is a good little win for them. Interestingly enough, this is not a match note, but I did see that No Diving took a game off of Day Old Sushi. Day Old Sushi, a team that has made top cut in SAC tournament number 1, losing a game, not a set, but a game to No Diving, kind of opened my eyes a little bit. And I checked with my sources, and that was a legit win. There was no DC, no cheesy loss or anything like that. So a nice 1-2 loss from No Diving as well. I see you guys. Speaking of Day Old Sushi, Carbonado was able to actually get a 2-1 win against them. Like I said, Day Old Sushi, a team that has revamped their roster recently, and we have seen some success come from them out of their revamped roster. I know they weren't happy that they didn't make top cut or qualify for Sunday, but we expect them to be back on Sunday with how they will perform over the course of next month. For Carbonado, though, this is a great return to form. They made Alpha Bracket in the past, and then they kind of fell off the face of the earth. Carbonado getting a win, a quality win against a quality opponent here is a good return to form for what we expect from Carbonado in the future. Winners from Swiss. I got a lot of winners here. First off, the Nutty Redemption Arc. The pickup team that keeps on giving. They went 5-1 here. Key wins coming against the Dream Knights and Red Sun. Making alpha brackets for the first time. Nuts made one beta the last time they played, I believe in November. So the Nutty Redemption Arc. Getting some redemption here, qualifying for alpha bracket this time around. Amnesia, I see you. I see you guys popping off. Key wins against Resilience, the Krusty Crew, Thimbo, IHOP, and qualifying for their first alpha bracket. Did they do good in alpha bracket? Doesn't matter. The fact that they had a great Sunday and they got the experience of playing against alpha bracket teams is going to make them better and make them a more consistent team going forward. Attaboy, Amnesia. I see you. The Wiggly Phantoms, their first ever time getting 4 wins in low ink. A team that I talk about pretty much every single week because they're constantly improving and they deserve the attention they're getting. Key wins coming against Barracuda Blitz and Nightshade. Their only 2 losses were 1-2 results. So nobody completely swept them. They took at least a game from everybody. It's like if they got knocked down, they bit somebody's kneecap as they were going back up and then getting knocked down again. But Wiggly Phantoms still popping off. Krill Streak, welcome back. And in their first time playing in low ink in what seems like an eternity, they went 4-2, making beta bracket. Welcome back, Krill Streak. I believe I'll be talking about them later because they did some damage in beta. Solution has the idea for how to make alpha bracket now, going 5-1 with key wins coming against ITAP, Krill Streak, Evening Chickens, and finally making alpha bracket. This is a team that when we look at their roster, we think, okay, beta bracket is cool. The things they're doing in beta is all right, but we need to see these guys consistently in alpha. They made top cut in SAC Tournament 1. They follow that up with an alpha bracket result here. So Solution, a team on the rise, one of the big dogs going forward for sure. Refurbished Free Ink. These guys did not qualify for Sunday, went 3-3, but had some really interesting 1-2 results here where they almost knocked off some quality opponents. 1-2 loss to ITAP, 1-2 loss to Twisted Time, 1-2 loss to Krill Streak. So they almost had 3 really nice upsets there and still found a way to get 3 other wins as well. So Refurbished Free Ink, I'm giving them a winner's role here. I feel like they were close to doing some scary damage here in this tournament. Just fell a little bit short. The Deep Fried Octolings. Make sure you include the in the Deep Fried Octolings. They don't just have it there just to be cute. If it's a part of your name, you need to say the whole thing. 4-2 with key wins coming against Geek Squids and Zero Ink. They were 1.1111% away from qualifying for alpha bracket as far as opponent win percentage is concerned. So close. I will say this though, if you Deep Fried Octolings, you go 4-2. If you want to make alpha, avoid the opponent win percentage, get that extra win and go 5-1 and hope that somebody else loses as well so you don't get stuck in beta with a 5-1 record. So Deep Fried Octolings though, these guys are still on the rise. They're knocking on the door. They're getting better. They're becoming now a scary team. Don't sleep on those guys. I feel like I've gotten the word out about the Deep Fried Octolings though. Their performance, finishing 3rd place in the Minnow Cup of Clan Blitz earlier in this month, 1 spot short of alpha bracket. I think the word is out now. These guys are for real. They're going to be a team with a target on their back. They're going to be transitioning from hunter to hunted very soon. If not now, watch them catch up now for real. Toxic Haze, the Destiny Cadets going 4-2 with key wins over Enigma and Zero Inc., the Gamma Bracket winners from November qualifying. Moving up, you like to see it when teams move up after they win a tournament instead of going back into the same tournament they've already won. Going into beta for their first time, we have high expectations for Toxic Haze going forward here on the Popcast. Moonlight Capital went 3-3 with key wins coming against Enigma and the Villain Academy. Why am I pointing out a team called Moonlight Capital? I have no idea who they are. You don't either. But where did these guys come from? This is their first Low Inc tournament after playing in a couple of North American Opens. And in their first Low Inc tournament, they make Gamma. Traditionally, when we see a team that has only played it in a Opens, they don't do very well in Low Inc. That's not the case here with Moonlight Capital. They have their first tournament result in, and they have something to build off of. Hopefully these guys stick around and we can see some more legit tournament action from them and not crappy tournaments run by Nintendo who doesn't know what they're doing. The Dream Knights go 4-2, slaying the Fukatsu Angels. A 3-0 sweep over Synergy. Okay, that's a huge win and possibly the biggest win of this entire tournament. The most stunning win of this entire tournament. Not that Dream Knights beat Synergy, but flat out swept them. That's a stunner. They got 6th in Group D and qualified for Beta Bracket. The Dream Knights, definitely a team on the rise. My biggest winner from Sunday, and you guys know this is coming, and even if I wasn't married to the captain, you guys would agree this is the biggest winner from Saturday. Tooniverse going 5-1. Key wins against Resilience, Thimbo, IHOP, and Kraken Warriors. First Alpha Bracket appearance. So congratulations to Tooniverse for the success that you had there. And that wraps up Saturday. We're just moving on down the list here today. That's not the arrow. There we go. All right. Let me just check something real quick. Eight to 10. Oh, 10 to 2. Okay. Okay. Gamma, Beta, and Alpha bracket. Start with Gamma. Before we do this, this was pointed out to me by Sky. Sky reminded me of this last night, Sky of Lone Week staff. This is the first time where nobody dropped from Saturday to Sunday. If you qualified for Gamma, Beta, or Alpha, you played in those specific brackets. Hats off to you guys. Yay! Nobody was butthurt. Well, I'm sure people were butthurt, but nobody was like, well, I'm not playing in Beta. I'm too good to play in Beta. And nobody was like, I don't want to play in Gamma today. Somebody else can take it. So that's the first time ever everybody actually played that was supposed to play on Sunday in their respective group. So nice work, everybody. The Gamma matches of note are interesting. The one thing I will point out is the results that happened in round 2 of the winners bracket. Zero Inc. beat hashtag, I have no idea how to say this word, Abgedabin. Zero Inc. beat the hashtag A team 3-2. Carbonado beat another team I can't pronounce, Aether, 3-2. And the Octo Inkers beat Neptune's Envy 3-2. These were all matches that were in round 2, and they all went to a game 5, except for the team that won all of Gamma Bracket. They 3-0'd the opponent they played, Tinta Shrimp Cocktails. But the reason I'm pointing that out is that shows how competitive the Gamma Bracket was. If you just look at the snapshot of round 2, 3 of the 4 matches needing to go to a game 5 to determine a winner. That's something you like to see. This was a very competitive bracket, so those were the matches of note that I wanted to point out. I don't have any VODs of that. I don't know specifically what happened here. Zero Inc. and Carbonado are two teams that have made Alpha Bracket in the past. So hats off to Eighth Year and Agamemnon, or whoever that is, for at least taking 2 games off those guys, getting close to beating them. The winners from the Gamma stage. First off, Neptune's Envy. These guys beat the Krusty Crew in winners brackets and then went on an absolute tear in the losers bracket. You guys know I love it when people pop off in losers bracket. They swept Enigma, beat the Phantoms 2-1, beat Carbonado 2-1 before falling to Aether 1-2. Nice tournament result there for Neptune's Envy. Carbonado, a nice 3-1 win over Enigma, 3-2 win over Aether, the team that finished in second place. Lost barely to Zero Inc. 2-3 in winter semifinals before being put out by Neptune's Envy. So Carbonado had a very good Sunday for themselves as well. Lastly, I'm giving a winner's roll to Zero Inc. They swept the Cephidents. That other hashtag team I mentioned, Carbonado, falling to Natives or Knives, I don't know, 0-3 in winners finals before being put out by Aether. So Zero Inc. popping off in the winners brackets, doing just enough to get third place in this tournament. Gamma bracket is just filled to the brim with teams that go out of their way to make sure their name is extremely difficult to pronounce. So not good for your brand, but I guess they don't care. Grand Finals. This one only went to one set. I believe we did not have any bracket reset for the first time in Low Inc history across any of the tournaments. This team is called Knaves, I don't know, beating Aether 4-2. So what does this mean going forward? For Knaves, I don't know, this was basically the Big Boys, a team that I believe played in beta bracket last month. I think they just had some subs or something. I don't know if they were a pickup or an actual team then, but it's basically the same roster. Instead, going down to Gamma bracket this time around and winning it against some quality opponents is pretty good. For Team Aether, this is a newish team made up of players from Hydra and Vinto. Vinto Gaming, a team you guys may be familiar with. So a new team playing in their first tournament together. Didn't win the whole tournament like Rising Matrix did, but finished in second place in Gamma here, having a very nice run. And I do want to point out, got several wins in the losers bracket, beating Tinta Shrimp Tacos in winners 3-0 before losing to Carbonado, and then went on a tear, winning 5 straight games in losers, sweeping Krusty Crew, sweeping Deadlock, sweeping Octo Inkers, 2-1 over Neptune's Envy, and 3-1 over Zero Inc. So Aether popping off in losers bracket. Nice tournament for them. Gamma bracket as a whole filled with a lot of newish teams with different names, but that's what you like to see. You like to see new teams starting to make a name for themselves in Gamma brackets. Beta. First off, matches of note. Synergy 3-0 over the Deep Fried Octolings. On paper, this is the matchup you would expect, but another Low Inc trend is the number 1 seed failing to beat the number 16 seed, and Synergy was number 16. Think about that. Synergy was so close to making Gamma in this bracket, in this tournament. That's crazy. They sweep the Deep Fried Octolings. On paper, that's not a surprising result, but anytime the 16 beats the number 1, I'm going to point it out. The Inky Go-Go's 3-2 over the Rising Sun. This was the winners bracket finals. Red Sun, again, the team that went 5-1 that got stuck in beta bracket. The Inky Go-Go's, a team a lot of us would assume were going to make Alpha Bracket. So 2 Alpha Bracket teams meeting in beta finals winners finals, I should say, median and winners finals, and having a 3-2 result. Would have loved to see the VOD of that set. So it looks like it was pretty close there. The other match of note, give me Tonkin 3-2 over Shining Storm. This was in the winners round 1, the number 8 versus number 9 matchup. Shining Storm, a team I had in my top 10 because they deserved a spot in the top 10. They were pretty good. I believe they were top 5 at the end of last low week. So Tonkin, a team that made top cut in Ash Cup on Sunday before this, come back on 7 days later on this Sunday and get a nice quality win over Shining Storm. Winners from Beta. Give me the deep fried Octolings. Why? They lost in round 1. They got swept by Synergy. So that means they probably popped off in loser's bracket, and that's exactly what they did. Beating Shining Storm 2-1, Krill Streak 2-0, Dream Knights 2-1, Tonkin 2-1, before being put out by Breakfast in losers round 5. So 4 straight wins in losers bracket by the deep fried Octolings. Also, give me Red Sun here. Beating Rising Hope 3-1 in winners bracket, sweeping Breakfast 3-0, sweeping Tonkin 3-0, before it close 2-3 loss to Inking Go-Go's and being put out by Breakfast 3-1 in losers final. So Red Sun taking home the 3rd place prize in beta brackets. Showing up and showing out. If they were upset that they didn't make alpha bracket, it didn't translate into their play with how they did in beta. So nice work there, Red Sun. Lastly, give me the Labyrinth X, the team that won Gamma brackets last month, moving up to beta this time around and still kicking some butt along the way. 3-1 over Radioactive, sweeping Krill Streak before losing to Inky Go-Go's and Breakfast, the team that finished in 1st and 2nd place, respectively. So a nice result there for Labyrinth X. The finals of beta brackets. Inky Go-Go's 4-2 over Breakfast. Again, no bracket reset. But what does this mean for both teams going forward? For Inky Go-Go's, this is the team that finished in 4th place in Alpha last month. One of the few teams in Alpha bracket to pop off in the beta bracket. One of the few Alpha bracket regulars who actually popped off in beta bracket. I believe this is one of a handful of times where a team that has made beta bracket in the past, or made alpha in the past, that got put down in beta, actually took care of business and won the whole bracket. I know that's kind of a trap, where if you are an alpha bracket usual team and you make beta, and if you don't win beta, people are going to be like, wow, you really suck. You couldn't even beat beta bracket. Inky Go-Go showed up and showed out here. They took care of business, going undefeated per sets, and won all of beta bracket. For Breakfast, though, this is a nice return to form from them. A team that kind of has some mixed results, and I feel like their roster's been shifting around a little bit, but they have a really nice tournament result here. If you take a look at what they did in losers bracket, because they beat ITAP 3-1 before getting swept by Red Sun, and then won 5 straight games in losers bracket to move on to grand finals. Sweeping the Squid Knights, sweeping Synergy, sweeping Lab X, sweeping the deep fried Octolings, and then beating Red Sun 3-1. So Breakfast showed up and showed out here, just ran out of gas against a strong Inky Go-Go's team. And we're moving, and we're moving. We're making good time today. Let's do alpha bracket and then call it a day. Matches of note in alpha bracket. First off, Evening Chickens 3-2 over Tooniverse. Now, as my wife and I were eating our usual Sunday brunch, I was looking at the team. I didn't know what the matchups were going to be, but I was like, there's a few teams here I feel like they could stack up well against, and some I feel like they couldn't. But Evening Chickens, I thought they had a chance. It would have been an upset, but I thought they had a chance to deal with the Chickens. And they almost did. They went up 2-1 before losing the last 2 games, and Evening Chickens
took down Tuniverse in the end of Game 5 there. Evening Chickens, obviously a team that finished in 4th place overall in this entire tournament. Tuniverse, the question was, yeah, they made Alpha Bracket, but do they really deserve to be there? When you take the 4th place team to a Game 5 and go down 2-1 to Enlighten next, even though you don't get a win here, Tuniverse obviously showed they have what it takes to hang around with these guys. Not just make Alpha Bracket, but to make some noise. But still, a nice win for Evening Chickens, being down 2-1, finding ways to get those last 2 wins and avoid the upset there. So, nice work, Dipping Sauce. Deco X27, 3-2 over Solution. So Solution, I kind of talked about their team. We were expecting to make Alpha Bracket, but they hadn't in the past, so this is their first time making Alpha Bracket. And this is a good result. They beat Solution beat the Tort Worldwide pickup team in round 1. And here they go taking on the team that finished in 3rd place and again took them to a Game 5. So Solution also proving that they belonged as a part of this group. They're not just happy to make Alpha Bracket, they're actually gunning to try to win this thing. And almost beating Deco X27 proves just that. The last match of note in the losers bracket, the Sea Boys knocking out Squid Row 2-0. The Sea Boys were the team that eliminated Squid Row. If you recall, I had Squid Row as my number 1 team to win the tournament, and Sea Boys were number 2. So if you care about my rankings, this was a number 1 versus number 2 matchup in round 4 of losers bracket, going to the side of the Sea Boys. So a good win there. Squid Row, unfortunately, keeping the streak alive and handing it over to Sea Boys now, of teams that finish in 2nd place, never winning the tournament the next month afterwards. So now the Sea Boys are now cursed and Squid Row is no longer. So did you really win, Sea Boys? Did you? Winners from Alpha Bracket. Give me Infinite. I feel like this is a team that's been around for a while, and I haven't talked about them much, but they had a pretty good Sunday here. They beat the Nutty Redemption Arc team 3-1, beat Trinity, who had a really strong Saturday, beat them 3-2 before losing to Rising Matrix and being put out by Evening Chickens 2-1. So Infinite, the team I should be keeping a better eye on going forward, but a nice tournament here. Deco X27, the number 1 seed. I think they just ran out of gas when they played the Sea Boys in the losers bracket, but leading up to that, they beat Honeymoon 3-1. Honeymoon, another team that had a really good tournament. Deco Solution 3-2, Sea Boys 3-2 before losing to Rising Matrix, and then once again when they played the Sea Boys, beating a team 3 straight times in one tournament. When you're just kind of running out of gas, I think the way they did it just kind of, the Sea Boys just finally caught up to them, but doesn't erase the fact that Deco X27 had a good tournament, top to bottom. Grand Finals, or actually no, I forgot one more winner roll. Evening Chickens deserve some praise for how they played here. Beating Tuniverse 3-2 before getting swept by Sea Boys, but then went on a tear in losers bracket. 2-1 Geek Squids, 2-1 twice, 2-1 Infinite before falling 1-2 to Sea Boys on stream. So Evening Chickens, I've had them in my top 10 before. I didn't put them in this month. But this is their best result. I think they've always been improving. December, they took a step backwards, but now they're back on track to where we expect them to be. Is Evening Chickens a top 10 team going forward? Let's see how they do in some other tournaments. I want to see some more SAC. I'm sure they're going to play in the Minnow Cup. They have some good results then yes, I think they're a team we should expect to see in the top 10 next month. And hey, if you're going to be this close to every other team in this bracket, you should be considered a team to win it for sure. Grand Finals. What can you say? The Sea Boys won a game. And like I said, that was the highlight of the entire tournament. This is Sea Boys winning one game on arguably their best map and mode. And it wasn't easy. They basically had to hold on to do it. For Rising Matrix, though, they cap off Whatever you think about them, they did go 32-1. That is the best record ever from any team in Low Ink history. They join Splatter Swim as the only other team in the 2-day era to go completely undefeated in matches, 11-0. I believe they're the first number 2 seed. Now, like number 1 through number 4 seed don't really mean anything. That means you've won your group, but like it's not like Deco X27 was the number 1 team overall. They were just like the number 1 team in whatever group we decided was the number 1 group for that month or whatever. So I wouldn't put stock in the fact that Rising Matrix is the first number 2 seed to win the whole tournament. It technically true, but doesn't really mean anything significant for the grand scheme of things. For the C boys, though, no, they're not the actual winners. And stop saying that on Twitter. That's not fair to either team to be saying stuff like that. But they got a ton of love here, and it's rightfully deserved. In the Deco X27 matchups, again, they lost to them 1-2 in Swiss, 3-2 in winners bracket, and they just had more momentum to beat them in losers 3-1. So the C boys, even though I had them at number 2, after seeing the teams that kind of popped up with how well they played on Saturday, I was really surprised at how well the C boys played here. What seed were they? They were the number 13 seed, so I believe they were a 4-2 team. So they just barely made it into alpha bracket from how they played on Saturday, and just showed up on Sunday. Will they win the tournament next month? I don't know. It's only happened once where the second place team came back the next month and won it. It's only happened once, so history will tell you no. But if from what we've seen from these tournaments, history is starting to not make any sense at all, because there were a lot of firsts for this Low Ink. And with that, I've run out of things to talk about. I've run out of water. We're going to find somebody to raid. Oh, the Watsum's raiding. I haven't seen that happen in a while. Go ahead. Thank you for watching. If you would like to be a part of the Popcast in any way, feel free to reach out to me using those things down here below. Twitter at Mr_Popgun, Discord Popgun, hashtag 5882, YouTube at 25Popgun, Twitch at Popgun25. That did not light anybody on fire. No, that JPEG's tweet was, I don't know what JPEG's tweet was in reference to. I did, but I don't know. Maybe you should watch the VOD on YouTube when that comes up in about an hour and a half, and you judge for yourself if I let anybody on fire. Also, if you're interested in talking speed up other podcasts, Kbot and Ninja, I believe, did a episode yesterday with Dude, SRB2 Dude, and Vic Villian on about content creation. So I believe the VOD for that will be up on YouTube at some point as well. Talking Speed Up, a podcast I have been on in the past, a good friend of the Popcast show. So if you're interested in more podcast Splatoon related content, make sure to keep an eye out for that. Meantime, go raid Watson. Make sure you guys are still wearing your masks. Okay? I know it's been a long time. But keep wearing your mask, guys. It'll be over someday. Unless it's not.